All right, guys, so I figured I would do a video on this. I had somebody ask, sorry, I can't remember who it was that asked, but it was about upgrading fuel lines for their P-pump truck or for a P-pump engine in a truck. So we are gonna start at the back of the truck, work our way forwards. I'm just gonna use this engine that I have sitting here for display purposes. This unit's getting a fast or an air dog. I'm not sure what he's putting on, but he's putting an electric fuel pump on this. But we're talking about running a mechanical fuel pump with the stock style fuel filter housing. This is the older style, which I prefer because the filter just threads on it, not the canister junk. I don't like the canister ones. I always swap them in any application. I always swap them over. So let's start at the back of the truck. Hopefully the light on this thing can be good enough. So obviously this has a fast unit on it, but just pretend that's not there. So if you're gonna run out of the top of the fuel tank, you are going to need upgrade. This is my opinion on this. If you're gonna run out of the top of the fuel tank, you want to upgrade the fuel line that's coming out of the fuel tank. So you're either gonna do a draw straw, or you're gonna need to do a bigger line into the fuel filter or into the housing. Completely up to you how you wanna rig that up. Or you can do a sump coming out of the bottom. This one's one of the small beans ones. Now, I like the sump myself personally. I know lots of guys don't like the sump, but completely up to you what you want to do. So you want to come out of the fuel tank, however you're coming out. I recommend doing at least a number 10, which is 5/8 line out. So you're going to run that along the truck, come up to the engine. Now, that said, whatever fuel line you're using, whether it comes out of the top of the tank or the bottom of the tank, whatever, I recommend doing number 10, which is 5/8, or number 10 or 5/8. Now you can use 8 or 1/2 inch if you want. I'm thinking myself, if you're going through the hassle, bigger line the better, because pumps are better suited for pushing than they are for pulling. So the less resistance in pulling they have, the easier they work. So that's the reason you don't usually see a lot of fuel filters before pumps. That's the reason for that. Now, in some applications, you will have a filter there, but usually it's a relatively loose filter, so basically just to keep the garbage out. So now if you wanted to add a fuel filter into this system, which would be more than fine to do so, usually I would run this line out of the bottom of here into some sort of a fuel filter housing and then run it forwards if I was doing it. There again, especially if you're doing a fuel filter, I would recommend doing number 10 or there again, 5/8. Now, fuel line, you want to use a fuel line that doesn't collapse really easy. If you can take your fingers and collapse it, I don't like using that, because the reason for that is when you get the pulse of the fuel will actually start to move the fuel line. And as stuff gets, that fuel filter gets plugged up a little bit or whatever, you'll start, instead of using the motion of the pump pulling, it's actually it takes the fuel line and actually will move the fuel line. And also you'll wear the fuel line when it does that. So you don't want that to happen. So you can use a hydraulic line, a single wire hydraulic line, if that's so be. I know lots of guys do that because they're afraid that the line will rub through. Single wire hydraulic line works fantastic for it. Not the cheapest way to do it because you're crimping on ends and all that stuff. But if you want like the best of the best, fuel rated hydraulic line works really well. Now PTFE, which is what is on here, also works just fine. You can buy that relatively cheap. Just make sure that when you buy it, the fittings are rated for diesel fuel, because if they're not, the fittings leak. I'm going through that on the Shorty right now. One of the fuel line kits that I bought was not rated for diesel fuel, and the line keeps leaking. Well, the fitting keeps leaking. So basically the swivel part of it, the rubber, the O-ring that's in there is not good for diesel fuel. So anyways, so now that brings us up to the front of the engine, or up to the engine. So lift pump. Now you can use whatever lift pump you want. This is one, I'll put a link in the description. It's actually from one of the subscribers. He's got a little eBay store. I don't have any of these pumps myself at the moment for sale, but there'll be a link in the description for his store. And then there will also be at some point a link in the description for mine. But right now, for you guys that want, he has them in stock, and they're the pump that I like using, the one with the big bore, all that jazz. So this is normally going to be on the side of the engine, like so, right? Now, if you're using this and deleting the bowl, you either need to cut the chunk off the bowl, the fuel heater, sorry, or you need one of these shims. The reason for that is the stroke of this. When you shove it in there without that, it'll screw the pump up. So, or the camshaft. So you need to have that. Now, I have all the numbers written down on the board over there. We'll talk about all the sizes in a minute. So you're going to go into the fuel pump, which is in here. You're going to come out of the fuel pump to your fuel filter housing. Now, your fuel filter housing is usually going to sit... Well, my return line's in the way here. Usually going to sit right here. Right? Obviously, there's no intake plate on there, but... So you're going to come out of that. You're going to come out of your lift pump into here. And now you're on the high pressure side. So if you want, you can, I myself personally would be using number 8 for this. So you're going to be coming out of the lift pump, number 8 or 1/2 inch line. You're going to come into here, 1/2 inch line, come out of here, 1/2 inch line. Now that said, this hole in here, I personally, if you're going to go through the hassle of doing this, you want to drill this hole out a couple sizes bigger. Basically the same size as these threads, right? You can see where it's neck down. You don't have to, but if you're going through the hassle and you have a drill that'll drill it, you might as well drill it. Now, coming out of this housing, usually when I do it, I don't have any pictures. I guess I'll have to set one of these up so we can see. Actually, maybe I'll do this swap on my truck one of these days, maybe. All right. So you're going to come out of here. This is going to be right here. You're going to come out of the top of here. Your line is going to come around, and you can do this a bunch of different ways. You can come down and around this way, or you come down and around this way. Now, if you're doing this, you can just come into here, which is your original port for fuel in, and you should always have the fuel coming in here. But if you want to do one more step, is you can tee it off here or wide off here, come in and then come into the front of the pump. And you can see there's no fitting in here. And the reason for that is that we're going to double feed this pump because it doesn't hurt. At this point, does it really need it? I honestly don't know. Like, he wants to make 600-700 horsepower with this. It's really, I don't think, needed, but overkill is just one of those things. To me, doesn't hurt. So we were going to do it. So if you want to do that, you're going to come out of here. You're going to come out of here 90, come across into here, and usually it's just going to come across and then go back down or go to your fuel filter housing. Now, if you're doing this, you're going to be doing away with the line. So usually this line here will go into the top of your fuel filter housing right here. Now, there's way more of the way. There's lots of ways to do this. This is just a 1/4 inch T with a 1/4 inch fitting in here. And then I drilled and tapped it to the 10 mil 1.5 that this banjo bolt is, and then put these fittings in here. I did this years and years ago. Now, an easier way, if you don't want to drill and tap, if you don't have a drill and tap to do it, is you can just cut this off and get a compression fitting that will slide onto here and then do the same thing. It's just that this fitting will just flip the other way. That's how you would usually do it on a fast unit, because this does not need to be tied into your actual fuel. This can just go into your return. So usually this is actually going to go on here because I figured I might as well use it on this. I won't use it on my own. Just changing setups, obviously. Yeah, that's actually something. I don't know if I'll do this on my truck or not. Maybe for testing purposes. Anyways, you're going to come out of here for your return. You're going to come down across. It's going to go into here, which ties these two together. And then this is obviously going to go back to your tank. Your return, you don't need to worry about upgrading. That will be just fine. You're not going to bypass off that much fuel. Now, something that you do, myself personally, I recommend if you're doing this swap because you want more fuel, you want to make sure you have a big spring in one of these pumps. You're going to, I have a video already talking about this, which I'm probably going to redo, but I'll put a link in the description for that as well. For doing that, I'm not going to show it in this video because I've already done a video on it. And then same with a video on doing the overflow valve. You'll want to either upgrade or remedy your overflow valve to do that as well. So hopefully that makes sense. It's really not that complicated. It's all about sizing more than anything, in my opinion. But like I said, number 10, 5/8 from the tank to the pump. If you want to put a fuel filter housing in there, you can. You don't have to. And then also, and then coming out of there, going to number 8, which is 1/2 inch. So I got this written down on the board here. So injection pump, your front port is 18 mil by 1.5. That is an ORB. I didn't write ORB beside that, but it is ORB. Sorry. ORB, which is O-ring Boss. The side of the side. So if you were buying one of these, for doing this purpose, this thing might be a little bit shaky here today, guys. O-ring Boss. So then you're going to be to a number 8 AN fitting, and then same with this one. I would normally, I would run 8 AN. If you're going to go through the hassle, number 8 isn't that expensive. You're going to come out of your fuel filter housing. This is the thread for the fuel filter housing. Then obviously you're going to come out and then go number 8 or whatever your fuel line size is there to it as well. Then on your lift pump side, if you're using that same lift pump that I just showed you there, your inlet is 3/4 NPT. So it'll be 3/4 NPT to a number 10 if you're using number 10. And then your outlet is 14 by 1.5 O-ring Boss, which will also go to that number 8 AN because everything on your pressure side will be 8 AN. Everything on your suction side will be 10, number 10. So I guess what I probably will do is I'm going to put a link to a bunch of this stuff in the description, which will be coming up on the website. Now, this is actually a question for you guys that are watching this. I don't mind putting some kits together for doing some of this stuff. If guys are interested in buying it, I just don't want to waste my time if guys aren't going to buy it. So if you're interested in a kit, like a DIY, I don't really want to completely assemble the kit, but I'll be able to go and buy all the parts in one spot. And then that way you don't have to search for fittings and all that type of stuff. I'd be willing to do that as long as there's some guys that are interested in doing it, and we'll post it up on the website. We are working on putting a bunch of stuff on the website right now. It's a slow process. We kind of changed some stuff around with new developments and all that type of stuff, but we are working on it. I swear to God, we are working on it. So hopefully that answers any questions you have as far as upgrading that. Now, that said, do you need to do this? No, you don't really need to do this. So if you look at my 3/4 ton, I call it the 95. Now this thing, other than it does have a sump with a, actually, you know what? It's a number 8 hydraulic line from front to back. Now, originally that was hooked to a fast unit. So anyways, but it is a number 8 hydraulic line coming from a sump up to the lift pump. It is a big lift pump like that one I showed you with the spring in it. And I don't know whether you guys are going to be able to see, but like it still has a stock fuel line and all that stuff. The stock line that comes off the pump and comes up to the fuel filter housing, all that stuff is stock on this. You guys see me put this engine in. I haven't really monkeyed with this engine other than some injectors and stuff, and some timing and such. So this just made on a step test on the dyno on Saturday, and we were monkeying around with it. This is the dyno sheet, which you guys, if you guys follow, you've already seen this, but 593 horsepower and 1,126 foot-pounds of torque. And that's on the smaller fuel line. So do you have to do the smaller fuel line or the bigger fuel line? No, you don't have to. It depends on how much power you want to make, obviously. But you don't have to. But if you want to upgrade the line, if your fuel lines are bad or whatever, it is not going to hurt anything by doing it. So, like, in my opinion, if you're in there and you want to do it, yes, I think, myself personally, just for my overkill, I would do it. If I was doing that over again and not doing for the reasons I was doing it, for showing you guys stuff, I would have upgraded it on that. It was one of those things I didn't have time at the time, or whatever it may be. It was just easy to put that stuff on there, and I wasn't looking to try to make a bunch of horsepower with it. Obviously, it's making more power than I originally anticipated it was going to again, but anyways, I'm kind of like that. But now that does have a sump with that hydraulic line from front to back. So just take that into consideration. That does make a difference in my opinion, because like I said, most pumps are not designed to pull, they're designed to push. So the less restriction you can get on the pull circuit, the better it's going to push. So, you know, take that as a grain of salt, as you may. That is something we'll probably get more into later. But hopefully that helps you guys out. If there's anything I missed or any other questions you have, let me know, and we'll catch you on the next one. And check out these other videos and all the links in the description. Okay, thanks guys.